Confirmation of a Falcon 9 stage striking the moon tests deep space tracking networks while exposing gaps in lunar debris protocols ahead of crewed missions. This is SpaceX Daily, Episode 60. SpaceX is preparing a Starship flight as early as late August that would attempt the first catch of the ship upper stage by the launch tower. The mission profile also targets the first orbital deployment of Starlink satellites from Starship. Ground teams are completing final vehicle checks at Starbase while the tower arms undergo software and hydraulic validation. Success would mark a major step toward full vehicle reuse by demonstrating that the lighter upper stage can be recovered without a downrange landing site. This development advances the ongoing Starship reuse goals by testing whether the upper stage can close the loop at the launch site itself. NASA verified that a Falcon 9 upper stage impacted the lunar surface at approximately 5,400 miles per hour, near the crater Einstein, ending an 18-month coast that began after a 2024 lunar lander mission. Tracking data from multiple ground stations matched the predicted impact point within seconds. The event served as an unplanned test of cislunar object cataloging methods. South Korea's Danuri orbiter returned high-resolution images showing a fresh crater formed by the Falcon 9 upper stage impact. The before and after pairs allow precise measurement of ejecta distribution and crater morphology. Analysts are using the data to refine models of hypervelocity impacts on regolith. NASA and Roscosmos extended their seed exchange deal through upcoming Crew Dragon and Soyuz rotations, ensuring continued crew transport redundancy for the ISS. The agreement does not yet include Boeing's Starliner, leaving Dragon as the sole U.S. vehicle in the barter. Both agencies cited stable technical interfaces and shared logistics needs as the basis for continuation. SpaceX confirmed that construction on the Grimes County Terrafab site will begin within months after local briefings addressed resident concerns over traffic, noise, and water use. The facility is sized to support parallel production of Starship components and Starlink satellites at rates required for daily launch cadence. County officials received updated site plans showing expanded rail spurs and on-site power generation. SpaceX acquired $295 million worth of Tesla Megapacks during the second quarter, more than doubling its prior quarterly spend. The units are being installed at facilities supporting AI training clusters that draw power through Starlink backhaul links. Procurement records show the company is prioritizing high-density rack configurations, suited for rapid deployment at remote sites. This hardware directly supports the growing compute load tied to orbital data center concepts under study. During its first earnings call, SpaceX outlined direct-to-cell service that it says will exceed the coverage and latency of the three largest U.S. carriers in rural and maritime zones. The system uses the existing Starlink constellation plus new spectrum agreements to deliver voice and data without terrestrial towers. Gwynne Shotwell noted the combined annual revenue of the target carriers exceeds $600 billion, framing the service as a high-margin add-on once regulatory approvals clear. Initial beta testing is expected to begin with partner devices later this year. SpaceX detailed a standalone mobile network that would use Starlink satellites to provide nationwide coverage, initially targeting areas underserved by terrestrial infrastructure. The service would integrate with existing phone hardware through software updates and new spectrum licenses. Regulatory filings indicate the company is seeking primary carrier status rather than wholesale roaming agreements. Users on r/SpaceX Lounge are debating where to begin studying cryogenic propellant management for orbital refueling, noting that autogenous pressurization data remains scarce outside internal industry papers. Another thread explores placing compute satellites in lunar orbit to avoid Earth-based light pollution and atmospheric re-entry effects while accepting the 1-second latency penalty. Participants calculate that delta-V costs from LEO to low lunar orbit are only about 40% higher than reaching LEO itself. One thing worth watching is how wayward Falcon 9 hardware reaching the lunar surface has renewed calls for binding international rules on end-of-life disposal for cislunar trajectories. Without coordinated tracking standards, future high-traffic lunar operations risk accumulating untracked debris at key orbital nodes. On the AI front, SpaceX and NVIDIA are jointly developing the StarMind AI-1 orbital supercomputer payload, with AMD shares reacting to the exclusive NVIDIA commitment. A Reddit analysis proposes lunar orbit compute satellites to sidestep Earth's sky brightness and re-entry concerns while accepting modest latency for long-duration training runs. SpaceX's Q2 Megapack purchases are explicitly tied to scaling AI data center capacity that will eventually integrate with Starlink backhaul. From an engineering standpoint, catching the ship upper stage on the tower introduces a fundamentally different control problem than recovering the Super Heavy booster. The ship lacks the booster's 8 sea-level Raptors and their high-thrust vectoring authority, so residual propellant margins after deorbit must be allocated with tighter precision to keep touchdown velocities inside the tower arm's capture envelope. Autogeneous pressurization during any final propellant settling burn adds another variable. Ullage gas temperatures directly affect the density of the remaining liquid, shifting the vehicle's center of mass by centimeters that the catch arms must accommodate. Because the ship's dry mass is roughly 1/5 that of the booster, its structural stiffness under lateral loads from the tower arms is lower. Designers must therefore trade between arm compliance and the risk of inducing bending modes that could crack tiles already stressed by re-entry. The first principles limit here is the available impulse from cold gas or remaining RCS thrusters once the main engines are shut down. Any excess propellant carried for margin directly reduces payload to orbit, so the catch sequence must be validated with the smallest possible propellant overhead. If the August attempt succeeds, it collapses the recovery logistics chain from 2 separate landing zones to a single tower, removing the need for downrange drone ship assets and shortening the turnaround clock by the time previously spent on booster transport. The next observable milestone will be whether post-catch inspections reveal tile or skirt damage levels compatible with rapid reuse, the same metric that ultimately determines whether Starship can close the cost per kilogram curve required for routine lunar and Mars traffic. SPCX closed at $108.27, down 6.6% from the previous session. Before we go, watch for initial beta testing of the direct-to-cell service later this year once regulatory approvals advance. That covers everything worth knowing about SpaceX today. SPCX is trading at $108.27, down 6.6%. A quick rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify goes a long way. I'm Patrick in Vancouver. See you tomorrow. This show comes to you from the NERA Network. If you want another sharp daily briefing, Modern Investing Techniques has you covered. Modern strategies for Canadian and U.S. investors. All our shows are free at neranetwork.com. Prefer reading? Today's full write-up, sources, and transcript are on the episode blog at neranetwork.com. Same briefing, readable format. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice. Editorial selection and analysis are my own.